Hey, my name's Tom, I'm from The Student Teacher and I am a TeachFirst trainee, kind of documenting my teacher training journey with TeachFirst. And yeah, this video is going to be talking about week 3 of their Summer Institute, which is an intensive training program over 5 weeks. And I can't believe that I'm already halfway through it. That is actually crazy to me. You know, when you begin something, you're like, oh my gosh, I've got 5 weeks of it. But the time is absolutely flying by, and I'm really excited to share this video with you. We look at some things such as quality first teaching, which is really a good way to help people with SEND in mainstream settings, so really good looking at that. We looked at memory and how memory works, and if any of you have watched the other videos, I hope I've shared how excited I get about how the brain works and cognitive development and whatnot, because it's just so interesting. We looked at modelling, which was a very it just seems like teaching modelling, but I don't know, that might just be me. And it's good to know the intentionality, that's what I'm learning. If there's one thing, intentionality is key. We also looked, as last week in week 2, we looked at safeguarding and how that works and all the things you've got to consider. This week we looked at e-safety, so being safe online, not only for the students but for us as well, which is really important as teachers. I know. Yeah, I'll talk about it later. I'm just giving you a rundown. And then I also had my school visit this week, which was so exciting. I'm really looking forward to being there. Obviously, I can't give too many details, but I'll kind of just talk about the experience a bit. So without further ado, let me start talking. Yeah, explain the week to you. So quality first teaching. This is an excellent way of helping people with SEND, and not only people with SEND, but your entire class. So yeah, quality first teaching. I've been a TA for a year now, and we spent a lot of time looking at strategies to help people with SEND, giving checklists, whiteboards, using dialogue, whatnot. But quality first teaching just gave some simple things you can look to do, some simple standards that were things like using a lot of dialogue, a lot of encouragement and praise, keeping people engaged and active, lots of interactive things, really strong lesson design and plan so that everything flows nicely and links to one another. And I really liked that they've given us these tips. It says basically, don't try and cater to one individual. If you've got a student with autism in your class, don't try and change everything to suit that one student, but make sure that everything you do is really well done, so that that student can engage along with everyone else, because everyone will find it useful, and that's the best way you can teach. So that was really good to look at. I really enjoyed that, and it was interesting because when I re-looked at quality first teaching, there was loads of different things, and so maybe the one thing I thought is, should there be like a standard of this is quality first teaching, and everyone goes by that standard? Otherwise the quality of, well, the definition of quality can kind of be subjective to the school, and is that quality? Who knows? Let me know if you guys do that in your school or if you've heard of that, but I found it really good, and I think it's a great way to help SEND students engage with your lessons. The next thing we looked at is memory. I love looking at cognitive development and how the brain works and how memory works. And we looked at recall strength and storage strength. So basically how well your brain can recall memories and how well your brain can store memories. And we looked at a guy called Ebbinghaus and his curve of forgetting. So your storage strength could be high. So if you're always surrounded by a dog, you can link lots of things to it if you do lots of things with animals, and you can kind of link things together in your brain. And recall strength is how often you recall a piece of information and how easily it is available to you. So something like a phone number, it might be lodged in you might have really high storage strength just because you used it so often, and it like links to a piece of your childhood. You'd remember your first address, things like that, even if you were living somewhere else completely different. And recall strength is kind of like if you keep bringing something up, so the more you talk about something, the more likely you are to remember it. And this was really good, kind of linking into planning, like how often do you allow students to go over things they've learned, keep like bringing back information that they have, so that then when they get asked it in an exam, they just know it, they remember it because it's in their brain. So yeah, really interesting looking at how that worked. Do some information. Check out my blogs. I've got a video on it and I talk about it a lot, but it's really, really, really fascinating just how memory works, how students' memories work. and how you can kind of make it better and be intentional to kind of get them where you want them, remembering what you want them to remember. You can be so intentional with teaching. That's what I'm learning. I love it. The next thing we looked at was modelling, and we looked at this strategy called I do, we do, you do, which is basically where you would model a skill. So for English, as I'm doing English, you might model writing a paragraph. So I would write out a paragraph in front of them explaining what I'm doing. That would be the I do, and they just watch that, they absorb that, take it in, see what I'm doing. And then we might write a paragraph together. So I would do a sentence starter and then maybe pick on people to kind of fill it in, and we'd do that as a class. And people would kind of get to see, and I'd correct them or whatnot, and we'd do that together. And then I might say, okay, now it's your turn to write a paragraph. You go and write that paragraph, and everyone would do 10 minutes of silent work writing their paragraph. And to me, it kind of just seemed like that was what teaching was. Like, I feel that was a given, but it was interesting that it had to be explained, and we had to go through that process and how important that process is. And I guess having the knowledge, you can make sure that you're doing that. You don't just think like, oh, I know what I'm doing, and wing it or assume stuff, but you're really intentional with what you're doing, how you show things, how you teach things. And it's a good technique of sharing skills, I guess. So that was modelling, really, really interesting. I just found it like a natural thing, which is hopefully a good sign for going into teaching. The next thing we looked at is e-safety. Really interesting here, just like I often found, I know a lot of teachers and a lot of them change their names on social media, and yeah, I never really understood that. And now looking at e-safety and how we can protect our children, how we can protect ourselves, was a really good eye-opening lesson to go through, a good module to look at. And so the internet can be a dangerous place, social media can be a dangerous place. It provides access to our young people, and often it's not controlled in a good way. Teens are on their phones a lot, they're on social media, anyone can follow, they can talk to anyone, there's online bullying. The internet can be a dangerous place, and we often don't think about it, because when you're older you kind of you can look after yourself, but young people don't always know the kind of the insidious motives that people have, or what's going on behind closed doors, or yeah, it can be really difficult for them, and they don't need, I guess, trying to protect them from having to learn it the difficult way of something going wrong, and we having to use all the safeguarding we learnt last week. And so we went through some scenarios and looked at that, and we also looked at how we can protect ourselves, making sure things are on private, that if a student messages us, it's reported, all of these things that enable us to look after ourselves and not be compromised, and enable us to be aware of, say you heard something like, oh, I've been chatting to this guy, he's 50, that's kind of an alarm bell, because why should, do you know what I mean? So yeah, it was really good to kind of think about things that you might not always think about in your day-to-day life. We don't often see the dangers of the internet when you're older, but it can be a really dangerous place for young people. Finally, I'm not going to say much about it, but I had my school visit, which was so exciting. I got to meet my head of department, my teacher kind of trainer, the head of school, some of the vice principals, and I got a tour, and it was a really nice building. The atmosphere was really nice, everyone was so friendly, and I'm really looking forward to starting there in September. I'm really looking forward to being part of the team, and yeah, just getting my hands sunk into something, you know, like, I feel in COVID we've been sitting around at home a lot, so I'm excited to be out of my house and working. So yeah, I'm excited. It's a good time to be alive. Thank you for watching. I know I kind of whirlwind through week 3, and that's what it is. It's just a whirlwind. So much information that's being given. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching. If you're enjoying it, subscribe, give it a like, give me a comment, tell me if there's anything you'd like to hear about or anything you'd like me to write about in my blog, and I will see you next week.